Have you ever found yourself in a room, locked in a silent battle of wills, knowing with every fiber of your being that you hold the superior position, the clearer thought, the stronger vision, yet feeling the profound inadequacy of words to demonstrate it? Have you ever felt the soul-crushing frustration of trying to argue with an inferior mind? A mind that uses logic as a blunt instrument and emotion as a smokescreen, only to walk away, feeling diminished and misunderstood, as if you've been wrestling with a ghost in a swamp of mediocrity. Perhaps you are utterly exhausted from the debasing game of verbal combat, the cheap theatrics of debate, and the hollow victory of having the last word. In truth, all you yearn for is a form of dominance so absolute, so effortless, that it requires no explanation, no justification, and no argument. You might have honed your rhetorical skills, memorized facts, and mastered the art of logical takedowns, earnestly believing that a sharper verbal sword was the key to victory. Yet despite every devastating argument, the willfully ignorant remain unconvinced. The strategically obtuse feign confusion, and the elusive dream of true intellectual authority remains frustratingly just beyond your grasp, leaving you in a perpetual state of exhausting and pointless conflict. You convince yourself that if you just found the perfect words, the flawless syllogism, they would finally see the truth. But let me tell you something that is perhaps the most dangerous and closely guarded secret of power. The moment you begin to argue, you have already lost. As long as you condescend to engage in the herd's noisy spectacle of debate, as long as you seek validation by explaining your position, and as long as you believe that truth is decided by a verbal contest, you will, with a cruel and unyielding irony, remain an unwitting supplicant, begging for recognition from those you claim to be superior to. You will be enslaved by their rules, trapped in their frame, and ultimately judged by their standards. This is not, let me be clear, a declaration that intellect is powerless. Rather, it is a stark, unvarnished revelation, a key to unlocking a darker, more profound, and infinitely more effective form of power. A power diagnosed with more terrifying clarity by Friedrich Nietzsche than by any other philosopher. Friedrich Nietzsche, that master psychologist and fearless anatomist of the human soul, did not merely observe this struggle. He saw it as the central drama of existence, the eternal conflict between the master and the slave, the noble and the herd, the creator and the creature. He offered a radical and transformative reinterpretation of what it means to be smarter. He asserted with the profound conviction of a man who had stared into the abyss of human nature that true superiority is not demonstrated. It is embodied. It is not a claim you make with your mouth, but a reality you impose with your very being. It is precisely within this audacious shift from verbal proof to silent presence, this pivotal and conscious rejection of the herd's demand for explanation, that the authentic key to profound, unassailable power is meticulously hidden. It's not about erecting an impenetrable fortress of logic. It's not about meticulously cultivating a dazzling rhetorical style. On the contrary, true and enduring intellectual dominance, as Nietzsche so brilliantly illuminated, resides in the profound, often arduous process of becoming. It involves the courageous act of cultivating such an overwhelming inner force, such a profound self-mastery and clarity of will, that the minds of others instinctively bend to your reality before a single word is spoken. Because within Nietzsche's transformative framework, an argument is a negotiation, and the superior man does not negotiate his reality. He is a lawgiver, a creator of values, a sun that does not ask the planets for permission to be the center of the solar system. He simply is. Nietzsche meticulously unveiled the hidden, often ignored, and frequently disowned engine of all life, the will to power. He posited with unwavering certainty that every interaction, every conversation, every silent glance is a contest of wills. The person with the stronger, more focused, more self-assured will to power will inevitably impose their perspective, their frame, their reality onto the other. The herd, with its reactive, frightened and validation-seeking will, is always looking for a master to obey, a strong reality to inhabit. To outsmart them is not to beat them in an argument, it is to become the master they have been unconsciously searching for. Consider for a moment the recurring, often vexing patterns of the common mind in conflict, the rapid nervous speech that betrays anxiety, the constant seeking of eye contact for approval, the desperate filling of every silence, the emotional outbursts that signal a loss of control. These behaviors might initially appear to be tactics. However, from a deeply insightful Nietzschean perspective, each of these seemingly mundane actions is, in fact, a symptom of a weak will, a coded confession of inferiority. The will to power in the herd animal, that vast, complex repository of all its fears and needs, employs these actions not out of strategic choice, but as a primitive, instinctual plea for safety and validation. These verbal and non-verbal habits are essentially intricate psychological symptoms of a deep-seated neediness, not the tools of a powerful intellect. They represent the unconscious self's desperate, often clumsy, attempts to appease, to conform, and to seek approval, manifesting as a frantic and noisy display precisely because their underlying vital reality, their own inner chaos and weakness, remains unmastered and uncommanded. Therefore, the critical path to outsmarting anyone without a word doesn't involve learning new rhetorical tricks, but rather a courageous, introspective journey towards profound self-mastery. The very first and arguably most challenging step on this transformative journey is to master your solitude. Nietzsche's great prophet Zarathustra did not discover his profound truths in the marketplace, but in the crushing, silent solitude of his mountain cave. The brutal truth is that you cannot project a reality you have not first forged in the fires of your own lonely contemplation. The herd fears solitude because when they are alone, they are with a stranger. The superior individual cultivates solitude because it is the only place they can hear their own voice, the only place they can strip away the second-hand opinions and slave morality of the world and discover what they truly think. The practical, silent manifestation of this is an unshakable self-possession. When you enter a room, you're not looking for anything. You do not need anyone's approval, laughter, or agreement. Your inner world is so rich, so compelling, so complete, that the external world is a mildly interesting spectacle, not a source of validation. This is not an act you perform. It is the natural byproduct of a mind that has found its own center of gravity. People feel this immediately. They feel your lack of neediness as a form of immense power. Their own anxious, approval-seeking energy crashes against the silent, immovable mountain of your self-possession and dissipates. Before you have spoken, you have established the frame. You are the one to be impressed, not the one seeking to impress. Once you have forged this inner foundation, you can begin to wield the silent weapons of the superior will. The second principle is to master the economy of gesture. The herd is in constant, agitated motion. They fidget, they nod excessively, they gesture wildly. Their bodies betray their inner chaos. They are leaking energy, leaking their will. The master, in stark contrast, is a study in stillness. Think of a predator. A lion does not fidget before it strikes. Its stillness is a sign of immense, coiled power. Every movement you make should be deliberate, purposeful, and minimal. This is not a rigid, tense stillness, but a relaxed, sovereign stillness. It communicates that you are utterly in control of yourself and, by extension, the situation. It creates a vacuum of energy that forces others to become more agitated, to talk more, to reveal their anxieties and weaknesses. When you do move, your gestures are precise and final. You do not wave your hands, you place them. You do not nod like a bobblehead. You give a single, deliberate nod of acknowledgement or dismissal. This economy of gesture is a silent declaration of war against the frantic, meaningless noise of the herd. It is a physical manifestation of a disciplined mind, and it is profoundly intimidating. The third and perhaps most potent weapon is the gaze as a tool of revaluation. Nietzsche famously wrote, "And if you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you." The common person uses their eyes to plead, to connect, to seek approval. The superior individual uses their gaze as a philosophical instrument. It is not about winning a staring contest. It is about changing the very nature of the interaction. Your gaze should not be aggressive but analytical. It is a calm, unwavering, and slightly detached gaze that communicates you are not merely listening to their words, but seeing through them. You are seeing the fear behind their bravado, the insecurity behind their arrogance, the slave morality that underpins their entire worldview. You are not looking at them, you are dissecting them with your eyes. This has a devastating effect. It makes them feel transparent, judged not by their own standards, but by a higher, colder, and more terrifying standard. Another powerful use of the gaze is to treat the other person as an interesting, but ultimately insignificant object in your field of vision. Allow your eyes to scan them for a moment, with the detached curiosity of a biologist examining a peculiar insect, and then drift away to something more interesting in the room. This silent act is a profound revaluation. It communicates more powerfully than any insult that they are not the center of the universe, that their desperate bid for attention has failed, and that they are a minor character in your drama. The fourth silent weapon is the strategic command of silence. In any conversation, the person who is more comfortable with silence is the person in control. The herd abhors a vacuum. Silence makes them anxious, insecure. They feel a desperate, compulsive need to fill it with noise, with chatter, with anything to break the tension. This is a moment of pure leverage. When someone makes a point, challenges you, or asks a loaded question, do not respond immediately. Simply hold their gaze and let the silence hang in the air. Let it stretch. Let it become pregnant with their own mounting anxiety. One of two things will happen. Either they will begin to babble, to nervously elaborate on their point, to qualify it, to weaken it, effectively arguing against themselves and revealing their own lack of conviction. Or they will break under the pressure and become flustered, ceding the entire frame to you. When you finally do choose to speak, or more powerfully choose not to, and simply offer a slight knowing smile, your response will have 10 times the weight. You have used their own psychological weakness against them. You have demonstrated that you are the master of the unspoken, the commander of the void, and they are merely a slave to their own nervous impulses. The fifth and final principle is the mastery of the smile of the overman. This is not the warm, approval-seeking smile of the herd. It is not the ingratiating grin of the subordinate. It is a subtle, rare, and deeply unsettling smile. It is the smile of a man watching children quarrel over a game whose rules he has long since transcended. It is a smile of distant amusement. You deploy this smile when others are at their most serious, their most passionate, their most self-important. When they are delivering their grand, emotional argument, when they are trying to provoke you, when they believe they have cornered you, you simply allow the corners of your mouth to lift slightly. This smile is the ultimate act of silent revaluation. It does not engage with their argument on its own terms. It elevates you to a higher, Olympian plane and reframes their entire passionate struggle as a trivial, slightly comical, and ultimately meaningless display. It is the most devastating insult possible because it does not even grant them the dignity of being a worthy opponent. It communicates without a single word. Your reality is not my reality. Your values are not my values. And the things that you believe are matters of life and death are to me a source of mild passing amusement. There is no verbal comeback to this. It is a silent checkmate of the soul. And when you embark upon this courageous journey, forging your will in solitude, mastering your body, and learning to wield these silent instruments of power, a remarkable transformation occurs. The need to argue, the desire to explain, the very source of your silent intellectual suffering gradually loses its insidious power over you. You are no longer merely a reactive creature, driven by the need to correct the errors of others, but a conscious force of nature, a creator of your own reality. This, truly, is the enduring promise of the Nietzschean path, the profound, liberating realization that genuine power and unshakable intellectual authority is not found in the futile pursuit of verbal victory, but through the daring, transformative process of becoming, the courageous forging of a will so powerful that it silently structures the world around it. This journey, however, doesn't end with a single victory. It demands an ongoing commitment to self-overcoming, a willingness to embrace struggle, and the understanding that you are the eternal artist and your own soul is the clay. Most people, trapped in the slave morality that values communication, understanding, and consensus, dedicate their lives to the noisy, fruitless task of convincing others. They build towering walls of facts, craft intricate masks of reason, and cultivate a facade of open-mindedness, declaring, "Let's talk this out." Yet beneath this civilized exterior, they are in a perpetual state of anxiety, their sense of self-worth held hostage by the opinions of those they cannot respect, because the fundamental problem was never about a lack of information or a failure of logic. The true problem, the insidious root of their powerlessness, lies in their inability to understand that the world is not a debating society. It is an arena of warring wills. This profound disconnect, this strategic blindness, afflicts precisely those who have not yet dared to create their own values. Nietzsche was uncannily precise when Zarathustra declared, "A state is called the coldest of all cold monsters." It is a system of herd values. To engage with it on its own terms is to become cold yourself. And it is your own inner fire, your authentic will, that you so stubbornly insist on hiding behind a reasonable, agreeable, perfectly logical character that is now screaming, yearning to be unleashed. Becoming intellectually dominant, then, has absolutely nothing to do with being the most articulate person in the room. It has nothing to do with winning arguments, assiduously citing sources, or merely pretending to be a better listener. On the contrary, it has everything to do with becoming, with embodying, with courageously bringing into the light the full, terrifying force of your own sovereign will. You do not become truly untouchable by erecting an unbreachable barrier of words. You become untouchable genuinely when you realize that no one, absolutely no one, can win an argument against a reality that is stronger than their own. When you cease to fear their disapproval, their misunderstanding, their disagreement, you stop reacting viscerally to their intellectual provocations. You observe, you revalue, you command the frame from a place of silent inner sovereignty. You are no longer a gladiator in their arena, dancing to the whims of their rules. And that, my friend, is the very essence of true freedom. Nietzsche named this profound process becoming the Übermensch, the overman, the lifelong journey of overcoming the herd self, of becoming the creator of your own values, of being the master of your own will.